BCA 101, and we're going to take a look at the whiteboard items from Unit 2. This first page is a review. We talked a little bit about the evaluation of Unit 1. I highlighted the part we talked about hardware. You know, the actual equipment. You think of hardware, you think of, nowadays people think of a PC, they think of a device. Sometimes they don't think of a device, you know, a phone, tablet, so forth. A lot of devices in the world, you know. In your car. Your car has computing devices that actually work similar to a computer. A microwave? Okay. So we have all kinds of hardware. Okay. What makes the hardware work? We already mentioned the software. There's a little confusion about program files. Program file would be maybe an application file would be a better way to state that. It's a file stored somewheres, and that's used to manipulate data. We talked about data files, just trying to review that. And data files, they be stored somewheres, and then the application file manipulates the data file. And how do we know which application? That three-letter extension would indicate which one. We're able to move we're able to move data through networks. We can move data, we can access software through networks. And the cloud, we talked about that acting as a utility, you know, getting the resources we need and sharing them. You know, sharing in the cloud, we can share out in the cloud where we store our data files, and we can also share where we get apps, and also we can execute apps in the cloud. It's really important. You may not think so right now, but it really is. And then the value of networks. You know, we can share devices, you know, networks, we can share hardware devices, and we can share software if the licensing is correct. What communicates the hardware? The operating system. And we talked about all those different kinds. We'll talk more about those later on. And app communicates with the OS, and users communicate with the app. And then we talked about, if you have like an expert, they not only can communicate with an app, but system software, or maybe even manipulate the operating system and run utilities. In Unit 2, we talked a little bit about the history of computing. You know, back in the old days, I remember when we would work on mainframes. They'd be large systems, and at first we'd feed cards into them, and they'd feed us back some type of printed report on what the information was processed. Okay, and then we moved from cards, and then we were able to use tape, and then some type of a disk, and so forth. We had big mainframes. We made smaller ones called mini computers. Mini computers still very powerful, but were a step down from the big mainframes. A lot of in the 70s and going into the 80s, these were very popular, you know, as we move up. And then, you know, invented around 1975 1985, we had some of the first inklings of what a PC was. In fact, when I was in college, I had a professor show us this funny looking thing. He said, that's got a microprocessor in there, it's going to be the next great thing. He said in 10 years. Well, go to 1985, that's when Michael Dell, Apple was taken off, Microsoft was in its first years and so forth, and we know then what happened from there on. Inside the computer we have a processor. The information has to move from memory to the processor on the bus, gets processed and moved back. Actually, the data, I should say. So it can do arithmetic, it can make logical decisions. Why can it appear to do such amazing things? Well, it does those things extremely fast. It can handle a large amount of information. If the software is written correctly and the data is given to it correctly, it can be very accurate. And nowadays, computing devices can process over and over and over and over and over. Very reliable. They don't break down or have issues like they did in the past. And what we should be able to recognize, and when we talk about speed, for example, when we talk about moving bits between two locations, in terms of speed, we talk about bits per second. Or we talk how long, a nanosecond, how long, or a microsecond, you know, how long things take. When we talk about quantity, you know, there we talk about bytes. How many bytes? A kilobyte, a megabyte, and so forth. And a byte is usually 8 bits. You know, 8 ones and zeros on and off. Alright. We reviewed a little bit about the importance of access to the internet. Talked about a router. Talked about an ISP and our access in. And we gave some examples. We looked at where are, you know, I asked, you know, when we do some work in the classroom, where are the files? Are they stored, you know, locally on a server? Are they stored on a server on the NIACC campus? Are they stored on a server in the IT area? Or are they stored somewhere out in the cloud? And the same thing's true whether it's your data or the app working on the data. Where is the app? Is it stored on a local machine? Are you getting it off somewhere here in the college? Or are you getting it from the cloud somewhere? Information moves through the internet through routers. We'll talk more about that later on. And it has multiple paths. So if one path isn't working, you can determine a better path to go through. With the internet, that allows us to use a wide range of communications. One piece of software we can use to communicate is a browser, and then different types of apps on our devices. And so we have the whole list. We can email, we can do video conferencing, we can do instant messaging, you can do chat, you can use your social network, you can text, you can tweet, you can do blogs, you can develop wikis to share information. So we have all these methods to share information via the internet. we can connect in. The information can be put on a server somewheres, and then other people can come in and see it. Going through all these routers out on the internet. So, we talked a little bit. We're going to start word processing. So we'll kind of change direction here. What I think of word processing is you have some type of text, the content of what you want to say. It's the words. It's very important. The most important thing about word processing is getting the words to say what you want to say. Okay? So word processing allows us to, move items around. So we'll use the word edit. You can edit the material to get it to say what you want to say. Then you can format. Now, make it easy to read or not easy, how it looks. Okay? So the idea of working with formats is to get the text to look. And it's not just the text, because nowadays, even though we want to emphasize the text, in order to make what we say more viable, we can add. Okay, we can add, an image. And then we can add, a picture, a chart from a spreadsheet, and so forth. Okay? And so then the format is how it looks, so making it how well it can be read, or how well we can gather the content. The format's going to make it so we can gather the content. We had a brief session on talking about whether a student is grade driven, their focus is their grade. We have lots of things in the world that are task driven. Are you just worried about getting the tasks done, or are you knowledge driven? Do you want to learn from what you do? Sometimes in the course we ask you to do details that you already know, but lots of times in the world, those who can do the details well then are usually asked to do bigger things. Might be something to think about when you get your first job. Alright. Even though there's more in Unit 2, the other videos go through that material more specifically. And this is what we had on the whiteboards for those 2 weeks. That's it.